far, it's like, yeah, I need it. You need it. We love it. Coming up on the show today, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio is going to join me, and we'll talk about Week 1. We'll talk about Notre Dame and Texas A&M. We'll get some of his best bets for week number 2 in the NFL. So Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, coming up here in just about 15 minutes. So I always love talking to Bino. So we'll get his thoughts. We're going to hear an eavesdrop in on the conversation I had with Alex Brink coming out of Week 1 and getting ready for another week of football, which is great. I love talking quarterbacks with Alex Brink because he knows what's going on. And that's kind of the plan today. So you can reach out to me. You'll find me on X at Chad and Rip City. You can call the show right now, 503-248-0620. Join us on YouTube, as always, youtube.com. Homepage is Rip City Radio 620. And you can always podcast and listen live via the free iHeartRadio app. It's a great way to keep up on the show and everything else that's going on. So a lot of things to talk about today. I also appreciate your time yesterday as we got through a brutal day in terms of the tragedy with Charlie Kirk and just the overall tension that I think we're experiencing with the constant news cycle, which is awful. So let's get ready for another big weekend, and I hope wherever you're at right now, you're enjoying your Thursday. Now, today is September 11th, 2025. I can't believe it, but it's been 24 years since the 9/11 attacks. So I was thinking about that today. I was still in college over at Washington State, Vancouver, and the night before, I remember because I went down and I went to work, and when I got done, the Broncos were playing on Monday Night Football. They had just opened up their brand new stadium, Invesco Field at Mile High. They played their first game there against the New York Giants. And I remember that night well because one of my favorite players, Ed McCaffrey, suffered a gruesome leg injury, and it caused him to miss the entire year. The Broncos won the game, but I went to bed sad about Ed, and I knew I had to get up and go to school. When I woke up, this is before text messages or, cell phones with video or YouTube or all that stuff. So I woke up and got a couple of phone calls, and I went in front of the television and realized what was taking place, that we were under attack. School ended up being shut down, and I was supposed to go to a concert down at Spirit Mountain that night. Chicago was in town, so my boy Steve and I were going to head down, and I went over to pick him up, and we're going to make the trek down to Spirit Mountain Casino, and then we got the notification from his roommate that the show had been canceled. So we went back to his place, and we just watched the news for the rest of the evening, trying to absorb what had went down. So it's just crazy now that I'm older, how quickly time goes by. So, but, I would say that if you're in New York and you have a chance to go to the 9/11 museum, as difficult as it might be to walk through it, it's well done, and it's a great tribute to the people who suffered and died that day, and gives you great detail in terms of what went down, how it went down, and what our response was. So something to think about if you're in New York. So I appreciate your time today. A lot of different things I want to get into, mostly football related. Now, basketball season not far away. Trailblazer Media Days coming up on September 29th. There's a big event coming up in about a week, but I can't talk about it yet. But it'll be announced soon, which is going to be really cool. But September 29th is Media Day. First preseason game is October 8th. And then, the regular season will begin later in the month of October. So excited about the start of the season. I was at Moda a couple of days ago. All I can say is the new video boards are amazing. Truly awesome. Like it's going to change the experience at Moda when you're sitting there watching a game in terms of the screens, the information you're able to have access to, and what that's going to be like. So I'm pretty excited about that. But the board's pretty impressive. And I put a picture out on my X account if you want to check it out. Something to be excited about as a Trailblazer fan. But football season, loving the game so far. We've been spoiled by great football, and I'm looking forward to what's right around the corner. Now, with the Oregon State Beavers right now, we know what they've been going through. It's been awful. 0-2, brutal home losses to both Cal and Fresno State. And what I want to see now from Oregon State is this. They've got games at Texas Tech and Oregon. So they're staring at 0-4. It's almost a guarantee, right? They're not going to win at Texas Tech, and they're not going to win at Oregon. They're just not at the level of those two schools. But The schedule opens up nicely for Oregon State after this next 2-game stretch. And really, if you looked at their schedule, like Cal maybe, definitely Fresno State, look, we knew that the beginning of their schedule was going to be rough. But it opens up after that. What I want to see from Trent Bray is this. Regardless of what the final record is at the end of the year, what I want to see from Coach Bray is how does he, as a coach, go about keeping his group together through this adversity? Do they continue to play hard? Does he lose the locker room? Do they continue to work diligently and eventually turn the season around because of the schedule and the way it shapes up? Like, that's what I want to see. And if they continue to respond and play hard in spite of the adversity they're facing right now, that'll tell me everything I need to know about Coach Bray. As I mentioned before, I wasn't offended by the halftime F-bomb he dropped with Nigel Burton. I saw that first half. It would have driven me crazy, too, as a coach. You know, guys out there making mental errors and mistakes that cost them, you know, a lead at halftime. And that scoop and score off the bad punt or whatever the heck that was, that changed the entire complexion of the game. So for Trent Bray, it's just a matter of keeping the guys together. How do they respond to 0-4? And do they continue to fight, scratch, and claw? If they do, that tells you everything you need to know about the coach. And it also tells me they're going to be fine as they continue to lay the foundation and rebuild the program. Now, for the Ducks, right now it's just a matter of continuing to fine-tune and stay healthy. They've looked great through the first couple of games. Dante Moore looks dynamic and spectacular. I mean, he really does. He looks great. So they just got to stay healthy. Very impressed with the offensive line. Harkey and World, the 2 tackles that came in the portal, have been dynamic. The continuity has been very impressive to me, one of the bright spots, and they've had a lot of bright spots, but I think that's been one of the best. Very impressed with the secondary, including the transfer safety from Purdue. The defensive tackles I'm excited about. I just love the way this team has been put together. And most importantly, they've rediscovered the balance in the offense, and they're pulling off the explosion plays in the run game. So for Oregon, you got to continue to work and fine-tune and stay healthy because you got Penn State coming up in a couple of weeks, and they're going to have a bye week before that showdown in Happy Valley. So I like where the Ducks are at. I think they're going to be fine. And I think they've got a great chance to beat Penn State. So just continue to fine-tune. I like what Dan Lanning is doing right now with the program. I love Dante Moore's dynamic play, and I just think Oregon looks nice. I said before the year I thought they'd be better than last year's team, and I've seen nothing that would lead me to believe that's not going to be the case. And once again, their schedule shapes up nicely. But you got to beat Penn State because Ohio State, Penn State, they're not going to be dropping many games like Oregon. So the tie breaks are going to be critical. You've got to find a way to get that win. They've got better strength up front on the defensive line. Their offensive line's played well. They're positioned well. And they got better team speed than Penn State. So weather the storm early. Don't make the big mistake or the turnover. And you know how it works with Penn State. If the Ducks keep it close or have a lead or are right there in a one-possession game as they go into the second half, the pressure is going to shift on the Nittany Lions, and Oregon's going to be in a great spot. For the NFL this weekend, the 2 best games are Chiefs hosting the Eagles. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog at home as Kansas City staring at 0-2 potentially. And the Seahawks travel to Pittsburgh to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers at 10 o'clock on Fox. Coming off that brutal home loss that they should have won but didn't against the 49ers. I like the Seahawks plus the points on the road this weekend against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they bounce back. I really like their defense. And now they just need to do a better job of running the football and having a little more balance in the offense. But I think you can feel good about certain games you don't win because you walk away and look back and think, hey, you know, we won some of the battles in that game. But I think the Hawks defense is going to be super legit, and I just like how they're positioned. All right, Brian O, Fox Sports Radio, my man, my brother from another mother, Bino, is joining us next. I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino. Pumped to talk some ball. We're going to do it next with Bino on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Rip City Drive, and joining me once again is my brother from Fox Sports Radio, Mr. Brian Bino. Dude, what a week one in the NFL.
Chad Doing. I'll tell you what, man, week one, that was insanity. I feel like, like games for a particular week, they've got a shelf life for a little bit. Some weeks you talk about it Monday, maybe you talk about it Tuesday. But there are weeks like we had in week one where you could literally talk about it throughout the whole week as you're setting up the next week's games. It was unbelievable, man.
All right. I know you do a really good job of not overreacting week to week. So I want to ask you, with the week one potential mirages in the NFL, the two biggest surprises to me were the play of Justin Fields in that epic game between the Steelers and the Jets. And then, of course, you had Danny Dimes, Colts hammering the Dolphins, and great play from Daniel Jones. So my question to you is, how do you view Justin Fields and Daniel Jones right now? The same as you did before, or is it possible that with new teams and better situations that maybe they have a chance to play better football?
I don't view Justin Fields much differently. I just don't. I don't buy Justin Fields as a like upper echelon, above average NFL quarterback. I've just seen enough of him. And really think about the lack of a supporting cast with the Jets, where he's got Garrett Wilson and what? Like the running game was good against the Steelers, but, in terms of who he's throwing to, you got a lot of, it's not that much better than his days when he was with the Chicago Bears, And so if he's not putting up numbers at all with the Bears, why would I believe he's going to all of a sudden have this resurgence with the Jets? I just don't buy it. That was a crazy game. It happens in the NFL. It was the lowest total of the week, like right around 38, and both teams were in the neighborhood of hitting the over by themselves. It was just a wild game. So, no, I'm not buying Justin Fields. I think Daniel Jones can be a bit better. It was just a disaster with Big Blue, and he didn't have a whole lot around him, and it was just time for him to move on. At the same rate, I think he could be a little bit better with the Colts, but I don't see anything, that's going to be a big, big step forward for him. I just think my Dolphins are trashed. My Dolphins are so bad right now. They have no secondary whatsoever.
Oh.
So when he faces good secondaries and good defenses, that's going to change a lot right there.
Yeah, with the way the Dolphins are set up now, I mean, Tua's under so much pressure to play well, and if he doesn't, their defense will collapse, and what a mess they are right now. I'm sorry, dude. As a Dolphin fan, it's going to be a long season for you. What about Justin Herbert? His play on Friday night in that game down in Brazil, it might have been the best game of his career. The Chargers able to get over on the Chiefs for the first time with Herbert. What was the bigger story to you, the play of Herbert or how slow and pathetic the Chiefs' defense looked in that game under Spagnuolo?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think we know that Herbert is a good quarterback.
Yeah.
So I would say it's more so the Chiefs. I would say I was like a lot of people who thought, okay, this is the first real game after the Super Bowl loss where they got punked by the Eagles. I think the Chiefs are going to be on point. And look, they didn't have Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy got hurt right away in that game. Those are two big losses. So I don't want to just like abandon ship with the Chiefs, all things considered, right? And but yeah, the defense, they got carved up all night, and give Herbert his props, but that defense got to be a whole lot better than it was. So that was surprising. They did battle their way back, and if Chris Jones doesn't lose contain and he's getting yelled at by his teammate Drew Tranquil, as he should have been, like that was a complete mental lapse by Chris Jones. All of a sudden, Mahomes and the Chiefs, they've got one last drive to possibly take the lead and win the game. So I think it's just we have such high standards and high expectations for the Chiefs. If they lose a game or they look a little bit vulnerable, we're just like, oh, this is it. They're not who they once were. I just got to see a lot more of that to really buy that, somebody else is winning the division and the Chiefs are just kind of shot. I don't think that at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a big believer in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And when you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be competitive regardless of situation. But I will say they're facing 0-2 right now. It's a very real possibility. They're going to host Philadelphia. Normally, Mahomes is a home underdog. That's like an auto bet for you, I would guess. But the problem is, after watching that offensive line look pretty shoddy against the Chargers, like, I don't know if the Eagles are the best team to face when you need to get right at home, because Jalen Carter and the rest of that group and what they can do, and the Eagles so dynamic on offense, like, that's going to be a tough game for the Chiefs. How do you see that one?
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for sure. And I don't think the Eagles have close to the pass rush that they had in that Super Bowl. They don't have Josh Sweat. You lose Milton Williams. You lose some of your talent defensively. I don't respect Philly's pass rush at all. They signed Zadarius Smith, and that's going to help a little bit. But the point is, I think that Mahomes is going to have enough time to find some receivers. It's just, when's Xavier Worthy coming back without Rashee Rice? I just think this. If the Eagles are able to slow down Kansas City's running game, which very well could be the case, if KC is one-dimensional like that, that's a big, big deal. Because all of a sudden, you've got the Eagles, even though I don't like their pass rush, if there are obvious pass rushing situations, that is advantage defense all day long. And if the Eagles know that the Chiefs are in a situation where they have to pass, they're not having much success on the ground, that's going to make the passing game that much harder for the Chiefs. So I think it starts with, can the Chiefs just run the ball? Can they run the ball at all? Because they couldn't against the Chargers. They got to have some more success against the Eagles, because without two of your main guys, your two wide receivers offensively, you got to be able to offset those losses somehow, and running the ball is a big way to do that. It's just, they got to get Isaiah Pacheco going. Ever since he got hurt last season, it's like he just doesn't have the same juice anymore.
I agree. And by the way, can you remind me never to run a crosser and then lose sight of where I'm at and run into Travis Kelce? That looked like that might hurt just a tad.
Yeah, right? Like, how fluky is that, you know?
Jeez. It was a full-on collision.
Ran into your own teammate.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a car crash right there, and no Xavier Worthy. That's just wild. It's one thing, right? Like, if you get depleted over the middle and you're like, okay, I get it, it's football, you know. He ran into his own teammate.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But, hey, here we are.
It's bizarre. Also, one note on Justin Herbert. You know, last year he had that foot issue, and I think the Chargers went out of their way to protect him because he couldn't move as well. If this is a sign of what's to come with the mobility, I mean, I thought he operated well from the pocket and made good decisions. But, you know, when he uses those legs as a weapon in situations where things may break down, like he looks a lot more dynamic. That was impressive. When he had to use his legs in those situations, he did, and the defense had issues with it.
Yeah, he looked good, and you have to imagine they're going to be able to run the ball even more. They didn't do a whole lot. The game plan was really like, just let Herbert eat. But I like Amari and Hampton, their rookie running back.
A stud.
And, of course, losing Rashawn Slater is a big, big loss. But you know Harbaugh is not going to be abandoning the running game or anything.
No.
That was a situational type game plan. But they're going to run the ball even more effectively going forward. I will say, Herbert, he's a good athlete. But I'll tell you, Gambling has to talk to Gambling Chad for a second. I didn't have a bet on this. But that last rush by Justin Herbert to pick up the first down and basically end the game, that hit the over his rushing yardage. So can you imagine if you bet the under and you're like, all right, we're pretty good. We just got to dodge one last scramble. And he scrambles, picks up 19 yards, and then does that cool slide at the end.
Posed. Yeah.
Oh, man, he was posing while sliding, and you're just waving bye to your money like, bye, thanks, Herbert, for costing me cash right there. But it's a great run. Put the gambling to the side. Well, he did a great, great job against the Chiefs.
Maybe that's why Tranquil was yelling at Chris Jones for breaking contain, because he had the under on Herbert's rushing yards. That's pretty funny. That stuff's so
There you go. That might have added some fuel to that. A little more venom from Tranquil, yeah.
At first, when I saw it, I was like, what is Tranquil doing? Then I saw the replay. I was like, oh, he's doing what he should do and let Chris Jones know. Chris Jones is a stud, but he's not perfect, and guys make mistakes. And that was a situation where Jones, we're not used to seeing that, but he blew it, and Herbert got the first down. It's Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, hanging out, talking some ball with me. You brought up a good point. A lot of coaches, it's amazing to me how many people in the NFL make millions to make decisions, and they're really bad at it. But you brought up a good point. The running game, it's always going to be a valuable part of a offense. And look at the teams that ran the football. And you brought up a very good point. The Vikings, what was the connection between their offense and when J.J. McCarthy started playing better Monday night against Chicago?
Yeah, man, the Vikings couldn't run the ball at all in the first half. Aaron Jones did nothing. Jordan Mason, the Niners player that came over to the Vikings, he was doing nothing in the first half, and their offense was going nowhere. Of course, they had that pick six that cost them some points, but hey, man, if they don't score a touchdown there, they're probably scoring like 9 points in the first half. That's nothing to write home about. Their offense just wasn't working for a big portion of that game. And then all of a sudden they were able to start running the ball. Jordan Mason had a couple of nice games. And then it was right then when, well, what do you know? They're scoring points left and right. They're scoring touchdowns left and right. It's tied together. Absolutely it is. It's just when you can keep a defense honest and you have a legitimate threat that we can run the ball down your throat whenever we want, that keeps the defense off balance. And that it's no coincidence that when the Vikings started running the ball, the points followed, the touchdowns followed. And they were easy points, right, Chad? Where It wasn't just, all right, we're grinding out these drives and barely eking in. It was a nice throw to Justin Jefferson, then a nice throw to Aaron Jones. It was easy touchdown right down the sideline. That was a big gain. So all of a sudden the chunk plays started occurring. It's just a completely different deal when you're able to run the ball. Take a team like the Lions. That's a big part of their attack is the play action passing game. Well, you're not gonna have play action available if you can't run the ball to begin with. They couldn't run it against the Packers, so they didn't have that element of play action. So some teams, it's even more important when you rely on play action passing. You got to be able to run the ball, and even for a team like the Vikings that doesn't rely on it as heavily as the Lions do, it's still important because you're one-dimensional. You're only throwing the ball if you can't run it.
We're talking to Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio. I'm a Bronco fan, so I'm paying attention to the AFC. It's only 1 week, but I know one thing. There are multiple teams in the AFC right now that are not at the level of Buffalo and Baltimore. I thought that game on Sunday night, it's an instant classic, but when you see the way that those two teams play and the quarterback play and the potential of big plays in their offense, like that was an impressive football game, and some of the throws Josh Allen made down the stretch were unbelievable. What was your takeaway watching that?
Well, yeah, for sure. The two quarterbacks, they were on display. Derrick Henry, you said something to me off air, but Derrick Henry was unbelievable until he wasn't. It is like his stud performance is a footnote because he fumbled and the Ravens lost the game, right? But you can just see the talent from both teams on display. You can see how they're going to be tough outs really throughout the season and come playoff time. But I can't help but think of this a little bit more critically, Chad, where look at the Ravens yet again in a big moment wetting themselves.
Big time.
How many times have they done that, right? You're up by 15. By the way, should have been 16. They missed the extra point.
Horrible.
They doinked the extra point. So it's like the Bills would have to get 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions. Right? So if you miss that extra point, that bails them out. That gives them a little bit less that they have to do. And so that's what started it. And then it was just fluky craziness. Derrick Henry fumbles. There's a deflected pass. Keon Coleman catches it. It was just obnoxious. But I just look at the Ravens and I'm like, that's sort of what they do in big moments. And we're used to seeing that in the playoffs more than the regular season. But when you're ahead by 15 points with 4 minutes to go, that's got to be a win every single time. Think back to last year. You'll remember this. They had a double-digit lead at home against the Raiders, and they lost. It's just what they do far too often. Now, I can't help but think that come playoff time, they don't have the clutch gene. The Ravens just don't have the clutch gene, and they've done dumb stuff each year. Whether it's, Mark Andrews dropping an easy 2-point conversion, whether it's against the Chiefs AFC title game, you're in Baltimore, let's give our running backs 6 carries when they're built on the running. It's like that's what happens time and time again. You can go ahead and bet the Ravens if you want come playoff time. I will not be. I will be fading them every time.
Yeah, I don't blame you. The other part that drove me crazy over week 1 was some of the shoddy decision-making, and I really look at the Bronco game. I was unfortunately there to watch the display from Bo Nix in the offense. It was a disaster until they started running the football in the second half. But there were a couple of things that I think are just bizarre decision-making from guys who are supposed to be smart. First off, Coach Callahan for the Titans, he's got a rookie quarterback. They've got a lead late in the first half at 6-3, and they've got a chance to go in the locker room with the rookie quarterback up on the road against Denver, and they decide deep inside their own territory, about the 5-yard line, to start throwing the football. It resulted in a punt, which resulted in a touchdown for the Broncos. That was dumb. And then Sean Payton decides to kick off, allows a return. They get a field goal. It's a 1-point game at halftime. And then Sean Payton, late in the game, decides to throw a bomb, trying to get Bo Nix a touchdown. And you give the ball back to the Titans with a chance to tie the game near midfield. And I'm like, how can smart people be making decisions like this? It's like, come on, man, be better, idiots.
Oh, it was so bad. It really was coaching malpractice.
Brian, it's
like
bad.
Literally.
Oh.
You can't even make an argument the other way. That's the whole thing. Like before halftime, right, where Callahan's like, 47 seconds. Broncos have 2 timeouts. We can just run the ball 3 straight times and go to the half.
Yeah.
Nah, let's just try to make something happen here. What's the plan? How are you even going to get into field goal range realistically? Like you're with the rookie quarterback backed up to your own 5. What are you doing? And the thing at the end where you mentioned with Sean Payton, you're up by 8 and you're in field goal range. So you either kick a field goal or you punt it and make a rookie quarterback go the whole length of the field to try to score a touchdown and still need a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Instead, they're like, let's go mini Hail Mary and just throw a ball up for grabs that I think was just out of bounds. No one had a chance to catch it. There's no justifying either of those decisions. Just crazy. I don't know what was going through their heads at all.
Yeah, because you know how it is, Brian. We forget about this, but it's really hard to win a game in the NFL. Like, it's a tough league. I don't like reckless decisions that put your team behind the 8 ball. I think it's dumb. I don't understand it. And when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, come on, man, be better. Come on, Sean. You're always telling me how great you are, but that decision was unworldly bad. God.
Yeah, it was very, very, very bad. And who knows if Bo Nix throws it left instead of right? Like, maybe they hit that play and score a touchdown, and we're like, wow, what a gutsy decision by Sean Payton, But the execution was so bad, and it just made the decision way worse.
I know.
I would have kicked a field goal myself, but the way I would have prioritized it, it's Denver. You're at altitude. I would have kicked a field goal, gone up 11. But hey, you could miss it. So the power rankings would be attempt the field goal, punt it, or do what they did. Like, do what they did was the worst choice by far, and that's what they chose. Just crazy, man. I don't get it.
We're talking to Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio. Bino! I love talking ball with him. All right, I want to talk about the Bengals for a moment. Their ownership really bothers me, only because they have a Ferrari at quarterback at Joe Burrow, who, as you told me before you came on the show, I mean, he had an MVP-worthy season last year, which is true. But their ownership group, they remind me of my Nana, who she would drive around town to like 4 or 5 different stores to get the best price on something, and she wouldn't purchase an item unless she had a coupon attached. And in the end, she would end up spending more on gas just to get to these different stores, and there ended up being no savings, but she wanted the coupon. And I feel like that's the way the Bengals are operating, where it's like, we got Joe Burrow, but we're just going to use coupons to build out the All right, Rip City Drive. Brian Noah is hanging out with me. A couple of things I want to discuss with you, Noah. First off, your take on what's coming up this weekend. We got some great games in college football, but one of the biggest games on tap this weekend, of course, is Notre Dame and Texas A&M. And the Irish had a bye week after the loss to Miami, and now they're going to host Texas A&M 4:30, NBC and Peacock. The Irish are a 6.5-point favorite. What are your thoughts on this game? I mean, it feels like a close, highly contested, physical-type football game. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think it will be. It's a tough matchup for sure. And, man, I don't like the possibility of Notre Dame falling to 0-2. I know, that's just disgusting right there. I might wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. But I think, Chad, defensively, I think that the Irish are going to have to tackle really well, because that's one of the things Texas A&M likes to do offensively with Marcel Reed. They like to get it out of his hands and throw these short, kind of like Texas does a lot. Texas throws these short passes and just lets their athletes create. And so that's one of the things. Notre Dame's going to have to tackle really well against Texas A&M. I do like overall what C.J. Carr showed us a couple of weeks ago, the Notre Dame quarterback against Miami. So I think that they've got enough to get it done. It's kind of weird where, when you see a line of 6.5, where the line, it's morphed a little bit. It's moved to where it's almost like you're trying to do me a favor by saying, all Notre Dame has to do is win by a touchdown. I don't like when it's like that. So hopefully there's some money that comes in on the Irish and it gets back to 7 or even beyond. But, there's some money favoring Texas A&M heading into this game.
All right, tonight, Thursday Night Football, it's a good one. Commanders are at the Packers. Green Bay coming off that trouncing of Detroit, and the Commanders able to take out Russ and the Giants. Right now, Green Bay favored by 3.5. I mean, it almost seems too good to be true. The Packers laying just 3.5 at home against the Commanders. That makes me nervous. What's your take on this matchup?
If I had to, I would take the points, Chad. I'm just a believer in Jaden Daniels. He's special. He's got the goods. And I think it's a good spot where, as impressive as Green Bay was last week, and I give them their flowers, I think it's a bit of an overreaction to what you saw last week with it going above a field goal with, Green Bay being favored by 3.5. So, look, they're more than capable of covering the spread. Green Bay is. I love their defense much more than the Commanders. But I'm not in love with that Green Bay offense myself. They're good. They're okay. But they've got Matthew Golden, a rookie receiver, and a bunch of number 2s to throw to. That's really what they're working with. And I don't expect Josh Jacobs to just go berserk. It's not like, Washington, you could say what you want about them facing the Giants, but they were great in goal line situations. They didn't allow touchdowns. And so I just think that Washington, even though no one's going to celebrate them defensively, I think they're a little bit better than they get credit for. And in this matchup against Green Bay, I just don't love Green Bay's offense overall. So I would take the points. I know it's a short week on the road, but when you give me 3 and a hook, and I've got a special quarterback, someone who I think is the better quarterback in this matchup, I'll take the dog. I'll go with the Commanders plus 3.5 here.
All right, that works for me. All right, this game I love, 10 o'clock on Fox. The Seahawks coming off the tough loss to the 49ers at the Steelers, and right now Pittsburgh laying 2.5. I kind of like the Hawks here in this situation with their defense. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, you could be right. We just got to see the running game get on track.
Yeah.
I have real high hopes for Kenneth Walker, and he did nothing against the Niners. So they got to get the running game on track. I mean, we talked about the importance of running the ball. I mean, that's even more important when Sam Darnold is your quarterback, and you've got a shaky pass-blocking offensive line, right? You got to be able to run the ball. So I think that's where it starts. And really, for the Jets, or for the Steelers, their defense looked bad against Justin Fields and the Jets.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I'm curious, at home, first, home opener, can you get your defense on track? And they very well could against Seattle. Maybe the under is a good way to, as we're talking this out. But yeah, I think that you got to be able to run the ball if you're Seattle to have a really good chance to win this game. Because I don't feel great if you've got no running game with Sam Darnold and a shaky O-line. I don't like that at all.
All right, this other game here, we've talked about it a bit, but what do you think about the Chiefs? Underdogs at home, 1.5 points right now. to the Philadelphia Eagles. Is Mahomes going to get right here, or are there issues too great to overcome in a week after the loss to the Chargers? What do you think?
Man, it's a tough one, right? It's one of these, it sets up for you to just, like hit your forehead after the game if you're on the wrong side. You know what I mean? Or if you're like, okay, you're backing the Chiefs and they don't win again. And it's like, when am I going to learn? I just saw this from the Eagles. They punked them in the Super Bowl. Why did I think it was going to be much different? And then if you back the Eagles and that's not the winning side, you're like, why would I fade Mahomes? He's at home getting points. So it sets up to be a coulda, woulda, shoulda type outcome if you're on the wrong side. But man, I don't know, man. I think the Eagles in this particular matchup, and again, without Xavier Worthy, with no Rashee Rice, I don't have great faith in the Chiefs' running game. I'd have to lay it with the Eagles on the road. I hate it, but that's one of my main focuses this season, Chad, is be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And to me, the more uncomfortable side is laying it with the Eagles. So that's what I would do if I was forced to do it.
All right, I'll give you mine. I think the Colts getting 2.5 to 3 at home against the Broncos is a play, and I think the Colts are going to defeat the Broncos in Indianapolis. I truly believe it.
Wow. Doom and gloom. Was Bo Nix that bad?
Yeah,
you can't back the Broncos here, yeah.
No, the offense will figure it out, but it's going to take some time, and I just think it's a bad matchup. Last year, against the same group, same defense, Bo Nix had multiple turnovers against the Colts. They can run the football with Jonathan Taylor. And I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is the answer. What I'm saying is that early in the year in this matchup, I think he outplays Bo Nix, and the Colts are able to get the win. And you talk about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to say that, but I really believe it. So there you go. That's the stinky game of the week. But I think the Broncos fall to the Colts in Indianapolis. But, maybe it's a close game, but I think the Colts, if that number gets up to 3, a very good play there.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to actually go the other way on this one, Chad. I'm going to back your Broncos because the look-ahead line was Broncos minus 3.5 on the road, and now it dipped down to Broncos are only favored by 2. So to me, I think it's an overreaction from what happened in week 1 for both teams, right? The Colts look like the world beaters against the Dolphins defense. Now they're facing a real defense, so that's going to look a lot different. Yeah, and the Broncos were so bad offensively. They really were, but I mean, I think it's an overreaction to an off week for the Broncos where you went from 3.5-point favorites to 2-point favorites. I think that's too much of a knee-jerk reaction. So I'll take the better defense. I'll bet on Bo Nix not looking nearly as bad as he did in week 1. I'll actually lay the 2 and go with your Broncos. I got some faith in your Broncos there, Chad.
Well, I appreciate you pumping me up, brother. I like that. Getting it done.
Man. Yeah, it hasn't felt nearly as good with other things I've disagreed with you about. This is the peak of the mountain right here.
Well, the good thing is if the Broncos end up winning the game, I don't have to write my name on the chalkboard a billion times, so that's a good thing. Dude, I told you.
Yeah, right. This has no consequences if you're wrong here. No doubt. Only good things.
I told you, man, one of the funniest things is when I went out back to burn my Elway jersey because of my stupidity. I just remember my dog, Puppy Shots, looking up at me as I lit the fire, and he looked at me with shame, like, what are we doing here, man? And I'm like, yeah, this is what I get for opening my mouth, Shots. My bad.
I do love how animals, you can just see it written all over their face, where they're just like, what? This makes no sense. What's going on right? I don't even know this guy anymore.
Oh, dude. Well, I'll tell you what, you don't need me to pump you up, but, man, I the countdown to kickoff, hearing you on Fox Sports Radio on Saturday and Sunday mornings, man, you're killing it, and just keep it up. I love waking up, getting my cup of coffee, and hearing Bino breaking down the action before the games begin. You're in the perfect spot, man. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad you got your hashtag supporting the show. That's awesome. And, man, it's so fun to get after it and lead up right to kickoff. It's a lot of fun. I love doing those shows.
Oh, dude, how's your health? How you feeling, man? People always ask me if you're doing well. I tell them, no, sounds great. But health-wise, are you feeling good?
Yeah, I feel fine. I was going to joke around and be like, no, worse than ever. But no, I feel great. I don't know why. This is how my mind works, but no, I feel fine. It's so weird. Like, that's a major speed bump
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if it's fair to categorize it like that.
Yeah, nearly dying what qualifies as a speed bump. Yes, that qualifies.
I felt totally fine before. I feel totally fine after.
That's great.
I just don't know how it even happened or why or what, but I'm good to go as far as I know right now. I don't feel bad at all.
Well, only one weekend of gambling knowing that could all change. So we'll see.
I know. All I need is Gary Trent Jr. to start nailing threes for the Bucks.
What are you doing, Trent? Stop making threes.
Stop making threes. My gosh, I got the Pacers in this game, Gary. Gosh. Yeah, he almost ended me, I think.
Well, you're my guy, man. Hey, enjoy the time on air Saturday and Sunday, and enjoy the ball, and we'll talk soon, brother.
You too, Chad Doing. Here's to week 2 being as good as week 1, man. But always good to catch up with you and talk ball. I'll catch you soon, man.
All right, in case you missed it, our college football and NFL insider is Alex Brink, former Washington State Cougar. He's now with eForce Sports, eForce Football, and he works with quarterbacks. And he's been involved in Elite 11 for quite some time. He's also the color analyst for the Washington State Cougars radio broadcast. So he's headed off to North Texas for a game this weekend. But Alex is great because he has insight on a lot of the guys who are playing both in college and the NFL because he's been around the guys. And he's got good insight. He played in the NFL. He was a big-time college football player. I love Alex. And so in case you missed it, I wanted you to hear some of his thoughts coming out of week number 2 in college football and week 1 of the NFL. And we started out by discussing the play of J.J. McCarthy in his first start as a Viking, getting a comeback win over the Chicago Bears on the road. Not easy to do, but he's got some players around him, great coaching. But J.J. McCarthy able to put together 3 straight drives of highly productive football, and they get the win. And Brink shared his thoughts.
Well, I certainly think that, it's for a rookie quarterback in first-year starter, in your first game, there's going to be a little bit of that slow start. And, J.J. McCarthy was definitely, that was part of it. And I think he stayed confident through, which I was really impressed with. I think Kevin O'Connell does a really nice job of protecting the quarterback at times in the pass game with play action, quick passes, finding ways to scheme things up for him. But also, the other thing that Kevin does is, he really leans into a player's strengths. And he knows that J.J. McCarthy, can make big throws in big moments and push the ball downfield. So he's going to let him, and you saw at times, him trusting his quarterback even late in the game to try and make big throws. And McCarthy stepped up in a big way.
It was pretty cool to see the sideline erupt. I thought it was nice after McCarthy ran for that touchdown to put them in a position to win. Like all the veterans were coming over to kind of dap him up, Alex. You could see how happy everyone on that sideline was, coaches and players. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, game, respect game sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like veteran players respect young players that can manage through that and don't look overwhelmed, right? Like in the locker room, he's saying, I got this, guys. Like, don't worry about it. Throws the pick six, comes back, head held high. Like, don't worry, we're still good. Defense really picked the team up too, right? And so that certainly helped. And, in the end, J.J. McCarthy's won a lot of football games, right? He's got a national championship under his belt. He's got some cachet in that locker room, even as a young player. And even after last night, he's going to have a lot more.
We also had a chance to see Caleb Williams' first game with his new head coach, Ben Johnson, and we're waiting to see how things are going to look in terms of being able to be on schedule and delivering the football on time and on target. What did you see from Caleb?
It was a little up and down, for sure. I mean, there was some really bright spots. He started, 10 for 10 or something like that, and I felt like he was in a pretty good spot. It felt at times like maybe he was pressing a little bit. I also feel like at times his guys didn't help him. He threw some beautiful throws in big moments that guys dropped. And, if you're a big-time receiver, you're supposed to make plays, in my opinion, that he was on balls he delivered. And so, I think it could have gone either way, right? You knew Minnesota, even with a new starter, is still a good football team. The Bears were really in control of that game. I also think Ben Johnson could have helped Caleb Williams out. There was a drive there, kind of in the third quarter, I think late third quarter, early fourth quarter, where DeAndre Swift was, unstoppable. And all of a sudden, inexplicably on first and second down, you don't hand the ball off to him, and then you're in a third and long. And so I just think, I think it's a learning experience for them. I think Caleb Williams can continue to get better. But I definitely think he showed flashes still.
We're talking with Alex Brink, our college football and NFL insider, former Coug here on the Rip City Drive. How about Aaron Rodgers' debut with the Steelers against his former team, the Jets, 4 touchdowns and making big throw after big throw? What did you think about the old man?
Yeah, I mean, really efficient, and I guess no surprise, even though it's been a couple of years, right?
Yeah,
it felt like Aaron Rodgers was playing at a high level. So I guess in that sense, it is a surprise. And but I think that roster is really well constructed. I think Arthur Smith does a good job of designing plays. He's kind of asking Rodgers to go under center and commit to more play action pass. And it seems like Rodgers has bought into that, and that's led to some big plays, big shot plays. You also got, you get a guy like DK Metcalf, you get some big pieces on the offense that can really help him. And in a way, he really only needs to kind of be the point guard, right, and just distribute.
On the other side with Justin Fields, I don't think he made a bad throw the entire game. It was probably the best game he's ever played as a pro. He was truly impressive. I felt heartbroken for him that they lost that game, but it's weird. I watched one game, and I know you can't make judgments from one game, but I left that game feeling like you can build around Justin Fields and win. He was unbelievable. What'd you think about his performance?
What I think in general about Justin Fields is that, he's a victim of, what a lot of quarterbacks go through in that league, and that you get thrown in as a high draft pick, you get thrown into bad situations.
Yeah.
And it really affects not only your confidence, but people's confidence in you. Justin Fields is a fantastic football player, elite talent, even better person. And I think if he's in the right situation, he can have a lot of success. And I'm hoping that is what he is in right now because, look, there's been, think about the Sam Darnolds of the world, the Geno Smiths of the world. Just, you go down the list of guys who, even right now, are having, a kind of resurrection in their careers after being in really bad spots. And I'm hoping that Justin Fields, that this is the situation for him because he can be the player that we saw the other night, I think, week in and week out.
Hey, Alex, you play football at a high level. What's it like for you when you watch Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson going back and forth, elite level play like that? What was your thoughts?
I like watching Superman, fly over you, honestly. Some of the things both of them. But look, that last drive that Josh Allen had, I don't think people understand how difficult of a throw, because he makes it look so easy, how difficult of a throw it was that Josh Allen made over the top of the defensive back to Josh Palmer to get that big first down to get him kind of towards field goal range, right?
How does that not get picked off?
The ball. It's literally the most perfect throw at the most perfect time, right? He threw it at a time when the defender was recovering from, recovering in the route to try and get there. He threw it with such great trajectory that it was a little too high for the guy to go up and get it, but enough trajectory to drop it down into Palmer's hands. The space and time that he had to make that throw and get it up and down before the sideline, it's literally nearly impossible, Chad. And so to see him do it again with such ease, and it makes you just literally jaw dropping, in all honesty, and so fun because what a better guy is Josh Allen, and to see him keep coming into his own is pretty cool.
Football is such a cruel game, and I know you've had this experience when you played. Derrick Henry had a phenomenal night and looked unstoppable, but no one will remember it because he had a key fumble late that allowed Buffalo to get back in the game. It's just weird how the game works out sometimes. Jeez.
Yeah. You're playing at the highest level with, the best players in the world. And even if you are one of the best players in the world, you have to be so locked in, right? And Derrick Henry in a bad moment decides to fight for extra yards and not just protect the football, and the worst happens, right? And even for a guy like that, that's a learning lesson, right? There's no reason to fight for extra yards in that moment. And even just entering the line of scrimmage should probably have two hands on the football. And so, the best make mistakes too sometimes.
Alex, some people were upset with Coach Bray using profanity during his halftime interview with Nigel Burton. But I got to be honest with you, if I was coaching a team and I saw my punter kick a worm burner across the turf into the hands of a defender who returns it for a touchdown, I might do the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get mad at a football coach for using a curse word. It's just kind of par for the course, in all honesty, And
especially when you go to him after a brutal half. What do you expect him to do? Smile?
Yeah, and think about just how maddening that must be as a coach to prepare all week, and then you don't have your third string snapper in there. This is such an important game for Oregon State to try and get back on the right side of things. And I think I don't remember the exact stat, but I think that their Oregon State offense outgained the Fresno offense, and they still lost by 2 possessions. So that was a tough one to watch. It was probably an even tougher one to experience as the head coach.
The most crazy stat in the NFL over the weekend that I saw, the Colts possessed the ball 7 times against the Dolphins that did not punt. Isn't that crazy?
I saw that. It's like the first time it's ever happened, right, for them or something like that. Yeah, I did see that stat. It was incredible. How about Daniel? Speaking of resurrections, how about Daniel Jones? Good for him, huh?
Gosh, I love that because I love resurrection stories. And so to see him go out there, because I got to be honest with you, I looked at 2 teams before the season began. I'm like, okay, the Saints are awful, and I'm glad I'm not a New Orleans fan. And I was like, the Colts have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. I'm glad I'm not a Colts fan, and he goes out there and just lights up the Dolphins. That was amazing.
No, it was. Right, it's week 1, so we always got to pump the brakes a little bit after week 1. But he did look good. I don't know if that's a product of how bad potentially the Miami defense might be, but he certainly came out and took advantage.
All right, two more questions for you. How about your Cougs dominating San Diego State, and you get a big game from Potter? The offense, after an anemic week one, looks so much better. I thought that was going to be a close football game. How do you feel about the Cougs, and what did you see that was different against a pretty good opponent in San Diego State?
Well, I was really concerned going into that game, right? San Diego State returned all 11 starters on defense. They had transfer quarterback from Michigan. They hammered the transfer portal, retained a lot of their guys. I mean, I think that's going to be still a good football team, right? Sean Lewis, the head coach, is a really good offensive play caller. So I was concerned. I think my takeaways were that the offense was definitely better. I think the offensive scheme that Washington State has brought in under offensive coordinator Danny Freund has a chance to be pretty special. It's different than the air raid, but it's more multiple. It's something kind of close to my heart, so I like it. More importantly, I think their defense is elite. I think the players they brought with them from South Dakota State, if you can believe it, are really, really talented. And, they're veterans. They're a bunch of fifth-year seniors, and boy, do they fly around, Chad. They fly around and they hit. They made a fast San Diego State football team look slow. We'll have to see here this week. Cougs travel to North Texas, which is another fast football team. And if Cougs get off to a 3-0 start, watch out. They have a chance to go 4-0 against the Dogs in the Apple Cup in Pullman in 2 weeks.
Gosh, that's awesome. That was such a big win. It was very impressive. You've been telling me, for a while now how much you like Dante Moore and what he brings to the table as a player. I got to be honest with you, man. After watching him a couple of weeks and seeing him in that Oregon offense with Coach Stein, he looks tremendous, and he's dynamic.
Dante is a really talented player. Again, known him for a few years back to Elite 11, thought super highly of him after my time with him in the Elite 11 finals. I thought, the UCLA, I actually thought he played okay at UCLA. I just think it was not a great situation, in all honesty. And I think kudos to him to have the maturity to decide to maybe leave not a great situation and have the humbleness to sit behind a player last year in Dylan Gabriel and learn and get better. And now he's the guy in Oregon, at Oregon, and I think Oregon's one of the most impressive football teams through 2 weeks of college football.
That's great. All right, Alex Brink, former Coug, also with E4 Sports. I wanted to ask you about one of your key partnerships, because you're doing so many great things at E-Force, but one of those partnerships is with Headquarters Physical Therapy.
Yeah, HQPT is a very important part of our kind of E-Force ecosystem. So all of our facilities here in the Portland metro area and in Bend have a Headquarters Physical Therapy clinic in them. HQPT works with everybody, not just athletes. Everyday Joes like you and I, who want to be healthy and live an active lifestyle. And I love their model, Chad. It's different than kind of your normal PT clinic. You're going to come in and you're going to see a physical therapist one-on-one for an hour, and they're really going to address your needs and where you need to, get healthy or feel better, not just from injury, but just in general. And so, if you're an active person, somebody that likes to get out and bike and run and work out or whatever, or you're an athlete, check out Headquarters Physical Therapy, headquarterspt.com, and, get in and see one of their incredible physical therapists.
So what town does North Texas play in? Like, where are you going to be traveling to this weekend?
It's a fascinating question. I did not know the answer to that until a few weeks ago. They're in Denton, Texas, which is a semi-suburb of Dallas, so only about 30 minutes from DFW. So it's actually decent, not a bad travel trip in all honesty.
Oh, good. So you can fly into Dallas. You'll be able to get to the campus really easy. And now North Texas traditionally has been one of those scary teams to play when you're not familiar, right? Because they do get a lot of good scraps down there from the state.
They do, and there's some connections to Washington State, right? Old Washington State offense coordinator Eric Morris, who brought Cam Ward and recruited John Mateer to the Palouse. He is the head coach at North Texas, so we're going to see the air raid. We're going to see again some talented athletes and a tough scheme to stop. So yeah, it's a very dangerous football team.
Well, all of my family from Oklahoma who are Sooner fans, they would like to thank you for John Mateer because he looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's a good player, really good player.
Alex, man, it's awesome, dude. Enjoy your week. Have a safe trip down to North Texas, and I'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Thanks, Chad. Take care.
All right, Rip City Drive, Chad, doing live from Spirit Mountain Casinos, getting ready for Thursday Night Lights. Big weekend coming up here. You can jump on board 503-248-0620. If you have any thoughts on any of the matchups this weekend, I want to hear from you. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, new report out. This is on ESPN. It says a limited partner with the LA Clippers reportedly sent nearly $2 million to a now bankrupt company that it allegedly gave Kawhi Leonard an endorsement deal for a no-show job. Less than 10 days before the star forward was paid $1.75 million by the company. That was according to the Pablo Torre podcast today. The company Aspiration reportedly agreed to a $28 million endorsement deal with Leonard in 2021. Clippers owner Steve Ballmer invested $50 million through his personal LLC in September of 2021. And the Clippers announced a $300 million partnership with Aspiration 2 weeks later. Torre reported that Leonard agreed to a 4-year, $28 million endorsement deal in April of 2022, 9 months after he re-signed with the Clippers. On Thursday, today, Torre reported that Dennis J. Wong, a Clippers limited partner, invested $1.99 million in Aspiration 9 days before the company made a $1.75 million payment to Leonard. The payment to Leonard was late, according to the payment schedule, as the company was reportedly having financial troubles before ultimately declaring bankruptcy. The NBA is investigating whether Ballmer and the Clippers violated league rules because Leonard accepted the deal. Yeah, I think they violated league rules here. It's pretty obvious. Hard to imagine the Clippers are going to get through this unscathed. Here is Adam Silver's reaction to Pablo Torre's report.
On their jersey patch. And I think that
they never made it there.
You know what I need in my life? Let me tell you what I need in my life. More pop-up ads. I need more of that in my life. I don't ask for them. I don't want them to talk, but they do. Please close your pie holes. Please. Now, back to more important matters. Adam Silver's reaction to Pablo Torre's report.
When the podcast came out, it was news to me. I'd frankly never heard of the company Aspiration before, and I'd never heard a whiff of anything around an endorsement deal with Kawhi or anything around engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. So it was all new to me. I heard it. I saw some of the follow-up information. We spoke internally. Rick Buchanan, our general counsel, is here, who oversees any investigations. Rick had a conversation with Steve Ballmer, and we quickly concluded this was something that rose to the level that necessitates an investigation, in fact, one that's done outside of our office.
In other words, Steve Ballmer's in hot water. The Clippers are going to get hammered for this. Basically the equivalent of the old-school NCAA death penalty. The Clippers are about to get the NBA death penalty here. Nice work, people. And you got to love Kawhi Leonard, too, being a spokesperson for this company Aspiration to plant trees and reduce your carbon footprint. And the best part is Kawhi couldn't even care. He could not care less what happens here because either way he's going to be fine. He might wind up with a different team and he can take his message elsewhere. Maybe he can wind up on the Suns and teach them how to reduce their carbon footprint. All right, I want to go through the games. You know, it's great. Week 1 in the NFL is always a little bit dicey because it's a mirage. Things happen that normally don't happen, and then you got to sit back and be like, okay, is that real or is it fake? Is that going to continue in week 2? Is that just a blip on the radar, or is this what this team is going to be? Or that player, is that how they're going to produce? And we get it every year in week 1. So it's really hard to sift through all of that. But I want to compare what happened in week 1 based on what we knew about the teams or what I thought about the teams going into the regular season. Because I was fascinated with the results of a number of games, and I thought, you know, by and large, the entire week 1 was awesome because we got great game after great game and a bunch of phenomenal storylines. And it's why we love football so much. It is the ultimate TV drama. The ultimate reality television show is NFL football and college too. I mean, it's great. You got to love it. Now, on Thursday, we got the opener with the Cowboys and Eagles. The big surprise here was that the Cowboys, aside from a couple of drops from CeeDee Lamb, had it not been for those, they probably would have won the game. They looked like a much better operation. I think the offense under Coach Schottenheimer looked a lot more diverse. Dak Prescott looked good. They were able to run the football, and they had multiple guys step up. And defensively, they had some issues, but they were able to contain the Eagles to a degree. So I guess the overall quality of play from the Cowboys was a bit of a surprise. And I think the Eagles, even though they didn't play their best game, and Jalen Carter got ejected before the game began, essentially, they still have one of the best rosters in football. And one thing for certain, Jalen Hurts, we can debate whether he's an elite quarterback or not. I know that he's a perfect fit for the way Philadelphia runs their offense. And when you've got Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, you got to look out. And Jalen Hurts is one of those guys where if you're back in man coverage and you're not paying attention to him and you don't have a spy on him, he knows when to take off and hurt you with his legs. Now, the Chiefs and Chargers on Friday night. I think we all went into the season believing the Chiefs, along with the Ravens and Bills, were the three teams to beat in the AFC. Kansas City, for obvious reasons, a legitimate Super Bowl contender because that's all they've ever been with Patrick Mahomes. But they got throttled by the Chargers. I think the Chargers are starting to show us what they're going to become under Jim Harbaugh. And I said it when he got hired. It's just a matter of time before he gets them in a Super Bowl. I'm that much of a believer in Jim Harbaugh. But if you look at the way Justin Herbert played, he's exactly what I told you he was for the last couple of years. He's an elite quarterback that any franchise outside of like 2 or 3 in the NFL would take him tomorrow if they had the opportunity. I don't care if he hasn't won a playoff game. I don't care if you want to dog him for his loss at Jacksonville or Houston in the postseason. I've seen enough football to know when a guy's elite, and Justin Herbert can do everything. He's mobile. He can throw the football with time, on time, and with accuracy. He's a great leader. He's exactly what you want as a cornerstone of your franchise. He's great. And here's the difference this year with Justin Herbert. He's healthy. Last year he had the foot issue and wasn't able to move, but we saw it in game number 1. They were using his legs as a weapon. And when you've got to deal with his arm and his mind and now with his legs, they're a big-time problem. They're also very tough at the line of scrimmage. It will take a little bit more time, but they'll continue to shape the roster in Harbaugh's liking, and the team will take on his personality. And the biggest concern for the Chiefs is not Patrick Mahomes. It's how old and slow the defense looked. So the question is, will that continue? Are the Chiefs going to take a step back, or are they going to get right this weekend against Philadelphia at home and then continue to be a major force in the AFC? Now with the Bucs and the Falcons, the Buccaneers, look, they're going to be a playoff team. I don't doubt that at all. I thought Baker Mayfield was okay in the spots where he had to be okay, and the Buccaneers were able to come back and get the victory over the Falcons. Now Baker, the best part is, didn't have a great statistical day, 17 of 32, a $167, but he had 3 touchdowns and no picks. Most importantly, he was sacked only 1 time. I mean, he is learning how to play the game the right way. I mean, the Falcons were game, but in the end, they didn't have enough, and they made a couple of key special teams errors that prevented them from winning that game. So I think those 2 teams are exactly what we thought, which is very interesting to me. Bengals and Browns. The Bengals had the worst performance of a winning team in week 1. I mean, they were awful. They had like 7 yards in the second half. Their offensive line single-handedly tried to get Joe Burrow decapitated in that game because Myles Garrett and company were on the loose, especially in the second half. So the Bengals should not have won, but the Browns have a kicker that put on his dumb cap, missed an extra point, and a short field goal, and therefore the Bengals able to walk away winners. This is what I know about the Bengals. Joe Burrow is great. Their defense is mostly garbage, and their ownership wants to purchase players with coupons because they're cheap. And you cannot operate like that when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow. You need to go all in now and try to win a championship. But they won't because it's the Brown family and they're the Bungles. And so they're going to continue to be cheap and not put Joe Burrow, who is a phenomenal quarterback, in the right position to win. Now for the Browns, they're dead mostly because they're scheduled to start the year. The next 5 games, brutal. They might be 1-5 after their first 6 games because of the teams they have to play. And this weekend they have to go to Baltimore to take on the Ravens, who are coming off an embittering loss on Sunday night to the Bills, and they're going to be 0-2. But I was impressed with the Browns. The defense looked great. I thought Joe Burrow did a good job of moving the football. I think they were 11 of 18 on 3rd and 4th down combined. They were good. And Joe Flacco did a good job of distributing the football to his backs and receivers, and I thought they played great. But they just didn't get over the top, and now they got to go to Baltimore. Colts hammering the Dolphins 33-8. Now, the crazy part here is not that the Dolphins got thrashed because they're a disaster. Defense is awful. Offensive line is awful. Their secondary is probably the worst in the NFL. And if Tua doesn't play well, they have no chance of winning a game. Tyreek Hill is crazy, and their coach is a weirdo. Outside of that, and their ownership and front office is probably well below average. Outside of that, it's all golden down in Miami. But, yeah, they're a wreck. They got ruined by the Colts. But the weird part here is Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, 272 yards passing and a touchdown. And they've got Jonathan Taylor, who's one of the best backs in the NFL. So the question is, who are the Colts? I thought going into the year, they, along with the Saints, were like the two worst situations in all of football, and yet they came out and looked like legitimate contenders in the division in Week 1. And they host the Broncos this weekend. I'm a little bit nervous about that game. But who is Daniel Jones? Is he the same pile of crap that we saw in New York, or is he going to come out and be Danny Dimes like he was in Week 1? My guess is he's still Daniel Jones and not Danny Dimes, but he was the beneficiary of playing a really bad team in Week 1. But they match up really well with Denver, and we'll find out a lot more about Daniel Jones this weekend because the Broncos' defense is legit. Sean Payton and his offense, not so good in Week 1, but the defense is a swarming freak show. I think they had 6 sacks in that game against Tennessee. Their secondary is legit. They bring pressure constantly, and Vance Joseph is doing a great job with that defense. But I'm really confused. I thought Daniel Jones was done, and he comes out and just lights the world on fire. And I think they had 7 drives, no punts in that game against Miami. That's how crappy Miami is. 7 drives, no punts. They scored. Game over. Elsewhere, Raiders and Patriots. The Raiders, like I told you before the season, you're going to see a team that has an idea of what they're supposed to be doing. They're no longer a rudderless ship. They have an identity. It's not complete yet, but Pete Carroll's laying the foundation. And that's why they look like they know what they're doing, because Pete Carroll knows how to coach. And you saw Geno Smith, who had an effective game against the Patriots. They were able to make the right plays in the right moments. They're just a much better operation now with Pete Carroll. And I can't wait to see that game against the Chargers. That's going to be a great early test for the Raiders. But right away, out of the gate, we saw what the Raiders are all about. They're going to play Pete Carroll ball. They now have an identity, and they've got proper direction because he knows what he's doing, which is amazing. And for the Patriots, Mike Vrabel was the right hire. And he's going to construct that team the way that he wants to play. Like Harbaugh, he's a tough coach, and they'll take on his personality too. I just didn't buy into the playoff hype with the Patriots because I think they're a year away from that as they learn to play the way that Vrabel wants. And Drake May is still young and has a long way to go. But props to the Raiders for the way they were able to execute in key moments in week number 1. Cardinals and Saints, mostly unwatchable, but the Cardinals able to scratch out a tough road win. A couple of touchdowns for Murray. Neither team, obviously the Saints are one of the worst in football, but a good showing for the Cards, and now they get a chance to open up the season 2-0. They host Carolina this weekend. One of the best games of the weekend, Steelers at the Jets. Pittsburgh gets to win 34-32. Aaron Rodgers, not perfect, but he did throw 4 touchdowns in the game. The Jets got terrific play from their quarterback, Justin Fields, who was unbelievable. 16 of 22, 218, 1 touchdown, no picks. He was only sacked 1 time. So like Daniel Jones, I have this question about Justin Fields. Is that the way he's going to play moving forward, or was that a week 1 mirage that we saw from Fields and the Jets offense? They host Buffalo this weekend. I think the Bills are a 6.5-point favorite. Very interested to see the way that they're going to deal against Buffalo. And Buffalo trying to rebound after that emotional victory over the Baltimore Ravens. For the Steelers, I guess the most impressive aspect was Aaron Rodgers able to be productive in the passing game, how smooth their offense looked. And if they get that type of play from Rodgers throughout the year, they're going to be a threat in their division in the AFC North. Commanders and Giants. The Giants are just a mess right now with Russ at quarterback. Brian Daboll's smart. He doesn't want to throw Jackson Dart out there too soon because their offensive line might be the worst in football. Legitimately, it's really bad. And if you put Jackson Dart out there right now, you might get him killed or destroy his confidence. So you've got to try to ride it out a bit with Russ. The Commanders got the win. They obviously have a lot more talent than the Giants, but they weren't perfect. They've got work to do as well. And we'll see them tonight against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. Panthers and Jags, not much to say here. The Jags, I'm just trying to figure out, what type of team they're going to be. And they remain in the unknown category. Trevor Lawrence got the job done. They got the win. They did what they were supposed to do. And the Panthers just aren't a very good team. But we'll see how things progress with the Jags. I think they've got the Bengals this weekend. Broncos and Titans. I knew and told you the Bronco defense would have a chance to be the best in the NFL. They were absolutely dominant in their performance against Tennessee. I mean, the defense was just nonstop. They were constantly harassing the quarterbacks. 6 sacks. They only allowed 62 yards passing to the rookie quarterback. And they only allowed 71 yards rushing. That's pretty impressive. Total yards for Tennessee, 133. The Broncos turned it over 4 times and somehow still won the game by 8, which is wild. The problem I have is Bo Nix. 2 picks and a fumble, 3 of the 4 turnovers attributed to Bo Nix, who did not have a good game. And yet the head coach, Sean Payton, is always telling me how great he is. Like Sean Payton, I don't doubt he's a great coach and a great offensive mind and obviously terrific in his work with quarterbacks, but he's also very arrogant and says a lot of crazy things. So, Sean, if you're going to tell me that Bo Nix is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the next 2 years and that this team is one of 7 you've coached that has a chance to win a championship, can you please have the offense look a little bit better when you have like an entire year to prepare for this game? Oh, my goodness. There are a few more games on the slate, and I'll get to those when we come back, but it's just fun to look at week 1 and take a look at what we saw compared to what we thought going into the year. All right, Packers and Commanders coming up just after 5 for a little Thursday night action. And week 2 is almost upon us. You got the Rip City Drive. Chad doing live from Spirit Mountain Casino on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, what's the latest on Brock Purdy? Is he going to be out 2 to 5 weeks? What's the situation? I mean, that's what I'm seeing. It could be a 2 to 5 week injury, which means Mac Jones is going to have to step in and play. I think the Niners are at the Saints this weekend, and the 49ers coming off that impressive opening week win against the Seahawks up at Lumen Field. Here is Kyle Shanahan, Niners head coach, talking about Brock.
Any further sense about whether Brock will be able to play on Sunday?
I think it's a long shot.
Is it possible that Purdy's injury could be a multi-week thing?
That's possible.
And that's the toe more so than the shoulder.
Yes.
Did someone step on his foot in the pocket? Do you know how the toe injury happened?
Yeah, I think it happened scrambling. I think when Love tackled him by the sideline. I believe it happened.
Were you aware he was playing through that in the game, or is it just something you found out later?
And I was aware. Yeah.
There you go. That's how much coaches enjoy talking about injuries. One-word answers. Man, what a problem for the 49ers. Kittle's out. Brock Purdy's got the injury, and now they've got to go on the road to the New Orleans Saints. Yay. It's amazing how injuries can just turn your season upside down. You get this great opening week win at Seattle, and now all of a sudden you're without your starting quarterback, potentially. It sure doesn't sound like he's going to play this weekend. What did Kyle say? It was a long shot? That's a mess. And that division is going to be very interesting to watch throughout the course of the year. I love the Seahawks this weekend. I think they're getting 3. They're at Pittsburgh. I like the Seahawks to go in there and get the win. The only downside is having to travel from Seattle to play the early kickoff time on the other side of the country against Pittsburgh. But I like Seattle in this spot. The one bright spot that came out of that game, their defense is awesome. Coach McDonald's doing a heck of a job with the defense, but I like the Seahawks to bounce back and get the win against Pittsburgh. And I think the Steelers are going to have issues moving the football against that Hawks defense. They looked really good. I'm still blown away that Brock Purdy was able to complete that pass for a touchdown. He picked it off. And it's like, wait, what? He's got it? Touchdown Niners? You got to be kidding me. It's like a gut punch. Thank God I'm not a Seahawk fan, because if I were a Seahawk fan watching that in real time, it would have given me an aneurysm. Like, that's a rough way to lose. And then they get the big play down the sideline from Darnold, and then the strip sack, and game over. So you go from thinking you're going to lose on an unbelievable play where Purdy should have been picked off, to thinking you're going to win after you get deep inside of 49er territory with plenty of time on the clock, and then strip sack, game over. See, that's why being a sports fan is insane. That's an emotional roller coaster ride that you don't want to be a part of. Dude, we're going to lose. This sucks. How did he not pick it off? Man, we're going to win. Did you see that throw from Darnold? Crap, strip sack, game over. It's such a buzzkill when the game ends because the quarterback gets the ball stripped away from him. No pass into the end zone. No excitement. It's just like, fumble, game over. Sports is crazy. Speaking of the 49ers, going into the year, we were concerned about what? Brock Purdy being able to carry the team without having the exceptional playmakers around him like he did a couple of years ago. He came through. He got the job done. He played really well and made a couple of plays late to get them in a position to win. We were also concerned about their injuries, and they're more beat up now coming out of game number 1. So much so that hard to see how they're going to be able to survive that. And we'll find out how much of a quarterback whisperer Kyle Shanahan is with Mac Jones certain to get time. And for the Seahawks, look, I'm not worried about the Hawks at all. You lose a tough game at home to the 49ers, but their defense is legit. That defense will travel. And as Sam Darnold continues to get more comfortable in the offense with his new teammates, I think the Hawks are fine. They're right there in the mix in the NFC West. It's a brutal gut punch of a loss in week 1, but they're fine. They're going to be right there. Lions and Packers. I told you before the year began that I thought the Lions, the most likely playoff team in the NFC from last year, the number 1 seed, to take a step back, and I think week 1 was a good example. The interior of that offensive line is not what it used to be. That's going to create problems for Jared Goff. They look disorganized. That's because they have 2 new coordinators, and we'll see how it continues to play out for the Lions. I still think they're a good team, and I respect Dan Campbell, but it's hard to overcome the loss of 2 terrific coordinators in Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Very difficult. So the Lions now in a bit of desperation mode. As for the Packers, they weren't perfect, but they played a darn good game. They looked tough. And they get the addition of Micah Parsons. I think they're a legit Super Bowl contender in the NFC, and they're in the driver's seat in that division in the NFC North. Elsewhere, I didn't have too many thoughts on the Texans and Rams, more of a defensive battle. But that night game, the Ravens and Bills put on a display. They're exactly who we thought they are, legitimate contenders to win a championship. The Ravens got sensational play from Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. They got some bad decisions from their head coach, John Harbaugh. And the Bills had a miraculous comeback with Josh Allen throwing for nearly 400 yards. Josh Allen's like Superman out there. Lamar Jackson's like Superman out there. I don't care if the Ravens lost or not. Those two teams right there, Bills and Ravens, are legit Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. And then going into the Monday night game, we had no idea what to think about the Vikings because of J.J. McCarthy. All I know is he finished the game with 3 great drives and got his team in a position to win the game. And the Bears, obviously more work to do because a lot of the concerns that we had about Caleb Williams not being on schedule, not delivering the football on time and on target, they showed up in that game on Monday night. So still more work to do for Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And with J.J. McCarthy, it's not always going to be like it was on Monday night where he's leading his team from behind to get the win. But I would feel very encouraged if I'm a Viking fan after seeing that performance from McCarthy late. Now, we did know that the Vikings have a talented roster. That shined through on Monday night. Their defense is great. They've got a very good pass rush, and they've got great playmakers around a young quarterback. And I just thought it was awesome when he completed the comeback and secured the win. All the veterans who came over to dap up the young guy McCarthy, I thought that was really cool. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Chad doing them live here at Spirit Mountain Casino, getting ready for Thursday Night Lights. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Or you can reach out to me. You'll find me on X at Chad and Rip City. I would encourage you to utilize our free iHeartRadio app and make 620 Rip City Radio #1 preset on the app and in your car. And it's a great place to podcast the show as well. But you can also listen live. And then during the Trailblazer season, just a reminder to you all that you're going to be able to stream all Trailblazer games live via the iHeartRadio app. So it's a great way to listen to the station and stay up on your teams and really just continue to stay up on everything that we talk about throughout the course of football and the start of basketball, which is now right around the corner. Now, if you want to jump on board, I would love to hear your voice, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. That is your telephone number. That's where you can find me, 503-248-0620. Now, I want to share this, and I'm not going to give up the name just to protect all parties involved, but this is pretty awesome. And this goes back to yesterday. You know, we talked a little bit about the tragedy, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And, you know, the one good thing typically in our country is that when we go through tragedy, a lot of times it can bring us together. And I had a friend reach out to me today and send an email. And he said, hey, bro, I just want to say I was listening yesterday and I thought of how you handled the Charlie Kirk tragedy. It was outstanding. You're really good at what you do, but more than that, you're a good man. I still feel terrible about how I blew up at you that day. I didn't handle that well. It was so selfish, and my justifications were absurd. Sometimes I have to take a long look back to see where I was and how far I've come. It's unfortunate that things seem to get to a certain point with me in order to feel shame and then grow. I've been extremely immature, selfish, and weak at many times in my life, and it's cost me plenty. I'm in a much better place now. I'm hurting so much over Charlie Kirk. It's a good thing I have no windows and a closed door to my office. Charlie was such an amazing, courageous man. There's never been anyone like him. There will never be another like him anyway. I just wanted to reach out and share with you. Well, that's what I'm talking about. What's cool about that is that you take a tragedy, and it allowed this gentleman to reach out to me, and I was able to reach back as well, because it was one of those moments where neither one of us handled a dispute well and said some things that shouldn't have been said. But the good thing is that because we were both able to admit, hey, I was wrong. I was an a-hole. I mishandled that situation. Can you please forgive me? And the answer is yes. And from that moment, we've been able to get stronger from that, which is great. And I love those type of situations. And it's so hard, isn't it? You know, with the pride that sometimes is lurking inside, where you don't want to admit you were wrong. You don't want to apologize. You don't want to walk down that path. But I've found that when you can humble yourself and be able to do those type of things, that it allows for relationship. And as we pointed out yesterday, that's the most important thing to me is relationship. That's what it's all about, is connecting with people and sharing life and promoting life and love. I love that kind of stuff. And I've had to do that, too, with, like my daughter, for instance, you know, where, now, again, maybe this only happens to people in other states, but maybe you can relate to this as a father. There's been times where I've reacted in anger, raised my voice, or said something that was out of line when dealing with my daughter, and I've had to go back to her and be like, honey, look, I just want to let you know that I was wrong. No matter what you did or didn't do, the way I reacted and the way I talked to you was wrong. And I just hope you can forgive me. And what's great about kids often is that they're quick to forgive. And my daughter's done that before, where she'll give me a hug and a little kiss on the cheek and say, it's okay, Dad, I love you. I forgive you. And I'm thankful that, you know, she's got that type of heart, which is really nice. But I do appreciate that email, and I appreciate relationship, and I you know, that's what I care about. So if it means I got to humble myself and apologize, but it is hard to admit when you're wrong. Gosh, it sucks, doesn't it? Sometimes it drives you crazy. But yeah, I'm like this gentleman here, where most of the lessons I've learned in life have been the hard way. I can't take the easy path on anything. It's like I've always got to do it the hardest way possible. Mostly because I'm a moron. You know, it's like, what are you doing, Chad? The internal conversation I have with myself is classic. On the golf course, in life, I'm often having conversations with myself like, Chad, what are you doing? Well, why did you do that? Why did you say that? What were you thinking? And why'd you use that club, you idiot? What are you doing? That's the internal conversation that goes on most of the time. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can reach out to me on X, at Chad in Rip City. Brendan will join me a little bit later in the show. I want to talk some Beavs with him. I don't want to rehash that horrendous game against Fresno State. It was horrendous, and the special teams were, god-awful, if we're just being honest, right? And people wonder why the coach was melting down during his halftime interview. Well, I don't know. I've got like 100 reasons why he might melt down and say something inappropriate on the microphone. I don't know how coaches do it. They have to get up there. They're entrusting their livelihood to young kids, hoping they make the right decisions on the football field. That's not easy. And I saw a lot of bad decisions on the field. The special teams, though, that punt is an all-time classic. Bad snap, punter can't handle it, chases the ball around like he's chasing, some type of squirrel in the backyard, gives it a boot like a soccer kicker. It scoots across the field like a worm burner drive, topping the golf ball, and then Fresno State promptly picks up the ball and returns it for a score. And that one play turned the entire complexion of the game. The Beavers should have been leading at halftime, but they were trailing, and game over. And Trent Bray was very upset. But I do think I've identified the most important thing moving forward for the Beavs this year, and we'll talk about that with Brendan. Game tonight, I like the Packers at home against the Commanders. The only thing that concerns me is I'm here at Spirit Mountain. The line is Packers -3. They dismantled Detroit in week 1. I know that the Commanders hammered the Giants, but the Giants are complete garbage. It's a no-brainer. It's like the Packers, of course, are going to win. So it just seems too good to be true, but I do like the Packers to get the win. I think the Packers are legit. And with Washington, love their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, love their coach, love their offensive coordinator. I do believe that they're a contender. I still want to see more from that defense as the season continues to move along. I have no concerns about Daniels whatsoever. He's like Justin Herbert or any of these young quarterbacks. He's like exactly what you want. He's got great charisma. He's got arm talent. He can maneuver. He makes good decisions. He runs the offense on schedule. It's he's pretty much everything you want in a young QB. There's nothing I don't love about Jaden Daniels. In fact, I watched him a lot and saw him play live on many occasions, probably about 10 times when he was playing for Arizona State before he went to LSU. I felt like Neil Olshey. Remember that nonsense Neil Olshey was talking about when they drafted Zach Collins from Gonzaga? I think it was something along the lines of oh, yeah, as a child center, UAP and Gonzaga, I saw Zach make a behind-the-back pass on the break for a jam, and I knew that was our guy. Really? Just that one time at Childs, you just knew he was your guy? Or was it because of mountains of work and scouring through tape to scout him? You just saw that one play or you were good. The behind-the-back pass for the jam. I felt the same way about Jaden Daniels. That one throw on 3rd and 18 against the Ducks down the sideline to Brandon Ayuk that put the game away and knocked the Ducks out of title position. That's when I knew. Yeah, that one time I saw Jaden Daniels make that throw to Ayuk down the sideline against Oregon. I knew it was the guy. That's a pro. But, yeah, Daniels is great. The only concern about him, what was it? A little bit skinny, a little bit slight of frame. How would he hold up in the NFL? He did fine in his first year. But I do like the Packers tonight. I think the Packers, they're right there with the Eagles or whoever else you want to put up there at the top in the NFC. One thing for certain about the NFC, and not as compelling as the AFC because you don't have as many good teams. Right now in the NFC, who do you absolutely consider Super Bowl contenders? Philadelphia in the East. In the NFC North, Green Bay. In the South, we'll throw Tampa in there. And what about the West? Super Bowl contenders. Cardinals, Rams, 49ers, Seahawks. Can you put any of those teams in that mix? Can you put Detroit in that mix after losing 2 coordinators? There's 3, maybe 4 teams you can look at and say, that team's a contender to get out of the conference to get to the Super Bowl. So I'd say 3 teams. But in the AFC, it's okay, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. It's pretty much the same thing. I guess both conferences are the same. But who else do you put in that mix? See, in the AFC, those are the 3 teams that everyone points to, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. but I think we can throw the Chargers in there. I think we can throw the Broncos in there. I also think we can throw the Texans in there because of their defense and their quarterback play. So it's just a deeper conference, but also the better quarterbacks come from the AFC. In the West, you've got Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. You got C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence in the South. You've got Lamar and Joe Burrow in the North. And you got Josh Allen in the East. That's like 8 pretty darn good quarterbacks right there. So there you have it. On the slate this weekend, I think the 2 best games I'm looking at, I love the 10 o'clock kick on Fox, Seahawks at the Steelers. I think the Steelers right now anywhere between a 3 to 3.5 point favorite. I love the Seahawks in this game. I think they're going to bounce back, get a road win, and improve to 1-1. I think this is a good spot for Seattle. The only concern I have is that long trip back east, coming from the Northwest and having to play that early kickoff time. Sometimes that can be a difficult proposition for West Coast teams. But I like the Seahawks in that game. And the game that's really confusing to me are the Eagles laying 1.5 against Kansas City. Normally, Patrick Mahomes is a home underdog. That's like an automatic, yeah, I'm going to lean Mahomes on that. But here's my question. Are the Chiefs' injuries, they're kind of beat up at the receiver position right now. They've got to get their receivers to stop running into Travis Kelce, and they'll be a lot better. But the offensive line is a concern. Didn't look so good against the Chargers, and now you got to go up and face Jalen Carter and the Eagles. And so my concern for the Chiefs, even though I like them at home in this spot with Mahomes, the problem is if the offensive line does not give him time and the Eagles' defensive front is able to get off, then the Chiefs could have some issues because, we didn't see that until the end of the game when Mahomes made that scramble throw. We're still waiting to see the big plays. And if you're forced to go, 8, 9, 10 play plus drive to score on the Eagles, that's going to create problems for you. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Chad doing with you, Rip City Drive. I'm live at Spirit Mountain Casino getting ready for Thursday Night Lights. Your chance to win between $1,000 up to $4,000 in cash, along with a sweet NFL helmet and jersey, with drawing times at 6 and 7 every Thursday during the month of September. You can jump on board 503-248-0620. And don't forget, a week from tomorrow on the 19th, we'll be out in Gresham broadcasting live along with the Rip City Rally. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, we got some football action going on right now. Packers and Commanders just kicked off at Lambeau, and a good college football game on ESPN right now. NC State has just tied up their game late first quarter with Wake Forest at 14. Yeah, I really love Lamar Jackson, not just because he's a dynamic player that I love to watch run around with the football in his hands because he's so dynamic, but he's also a super cool dude. And his motto of nobody cares, just work harder, I just love that so much because it fits exactly who he is. Well, he apologized. According to reports, there was a fan who slapped his helmet following a touchdown in the 41-40 loss to Buffalo on Sunday night. I guess the fan has since been banned indefinitely by the NFL after hitting both Jackson and wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, who caught a one-handed touchdown on his first reception with the Ravens. So Hopkins was leading a celebration of the 6 points he had just scored when the fan slapped both of their helmets. That's actually pretty cool. I wouldn't mind. You know how many times I wanted to slap like Terrell Davis or John Elway's helmet after a sweet play? I would have probably tried to do the same thing. Lamar kind of shoved the fan, but he apologized for it. But Jackson's cool. Take a listen.
Don't get me wrong. I didn't try to, it just happened. Like, I got pushed. I'm like, what? But I was like outside. I wasn't even thinking about me being out there on the field. But my apologies to that, whoever that was. I don't know who it was. My apologies to him. Like, just chill next time. Just, you can talk trash and stuff, but keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah. Like, dude, you want to talk junk? No problem. I'm cool. I can handle it. But keep your hands to yourself. It's like a little lesson that my mom used to tell me, right? Like, hey, Chad, keep your hands to yourself. Yeah, but Mom, he did this. Just keep your hands to yourself. Lamar also talking about cramping. It happens a lot in week one as guys get back into proper game time conditioning.
Well, I was a lot being made about that. But anyways, yeah, I was actually cramping the drive before that. The turnover happened. But I went to the sideline. If anybody paid attention, I was drinking pickle juice on the sideline already. I'm like, Sarah, I need to get hydrated. Like, I'm cramping. I'm starting to feel cramps. And then we went back out there. And obviously, it happened. My fourth and 3 happened. But if I wasn't cramping, we definitely would have went for it. I believe.
Where were you cramping? Where was the cramp?
My calves. Both of my calves. Like, you know how they said, like, the Browns game, I had a poop game or something? That's how I was, but I was better off because it wasn't, like, happening right then and there. Like, I just felt it, like, coming on, but, yeah, I was cramping again. I don't know where that come from, because if I had to use the bathroom, I would have said it. Like, I don't got no problem with saying that. I'm a grown man.
That's great, man. It's amazing. And Mother Nature even happens during the course of football games. That would suck, though, like, especially for the quarterback. And you're right in the middle of a big game and you got to grow a tail. Like, it's like, come on, man, not right now. But there are times where it's like, it's condition critical, where it's like, I don't care if we've got a series coming up. I need to drop trowel right now. And you know that there's, like, nothing you can do about it. I mean, can you imagine trying to lead an NFL team down the field on a drive when you're moondogging it? It's like, you don't want to do that, man. You got the old prairie dog work, and it's like, dude, I cannot captain this drive right now. Hey, Coach, you got to pull me, man. I got to go to the locker room. Trust me. It's not going to take long, but I cannot go in right now. It's crazy. But I love Lamar, man. That's a super cool dude. And, oh, by the way, he's incredibly talented. Once again, Kyle Shanahan on the potential of Brock Purdy being available this weekend against New Orleans.
Any further sense about whether Brock will be able to play on Sunday?
I think it's a long shot.
Is it possible that Purdy's injury could be a multi-week thing?
That's possible.
I think that's the toe more so than the shoulder.
Yes.
Did someone step on his foot in the pocket? Do you know how the toe injury happened?
Yeah, I think it happened scrambling. I think when Love tackled him by the sideline. I believe it happened.
Were you just playing through that in the game, or is it just something you found out later?
And that was where, yeah.
He said like 8 words during that entire exchange with the reporters. That's impressive. Also, in case you missed it, Jim Harbaugh is in love with Justin Herbert.
And a huge hit on Justin. The kind of hit that would have killed a lesser man. That's how big that hit was. Let's be honest about that. And then our guy, Justin Herbert, gets right back in the huddle, and it's 3rd and 14. Hits Quentin Johnson, which ended up being a half yard short at the first down that allowed for that 4th down. I've been telling people Justin's great. Just unbelievable, incredible, the kind of player that he is. That's especially hard, I think. Most quarterbacks, most human beings, you take that kind of big hit to come back the next play and just stand in there and, look down the barrel of the gun and hit another one. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive. And again, I'll ask the question, who loves who more? Does Jim Harbaugh love Justin Herbert more than Jim Nantz loves Tony Romo? I need the answer to that question, please. All right, other things that have, become obvious. I said it before the year, and, through 2 weeks, I think I've been proven right on this. I really believe that Oregon going into the season was going to be better than last year, and so far that appears to be the case. Now, we're going to find out a lot more about the Ducks over the next few weeks when they travel to Penn State, but they have 2 more games coming up that they're going to win. They're going to play Northwestern this weekend. They're like a 4-touchdown favorite. They're going to hammer them, and then they come back home for the Oregon State Beavers. They will be 4-0 going into the game against Penn State. The Nittany Lions will have the bye week before that game. But I'm telling you, man, I'm calling my shot right now. Oregon's going to win that game. And they're going to win the game for a couple of different reasons. One, because I like their team speed. But 2, they're one of the few teams with the depth and the strength that they're showing on that defensive front, especially with their defensive tackles, that can match up against that powerful offensive line of Penn State. And then with their speed and what I think they're going to be able to do off the edge is they're going to put Drew Aller under pressure. And once he's under pressure, he'll become a mere mortal, and the Ducks will be able to feast in that football game. The key will be this. It's very simple. You've got to avoid that initial – you've got to weather the storm early because there's going to be a lot of emotion, and Penn State's going to come out looking to send a statement, and the Ducks have to avoid the big mistake. That means turnovers, special teams gaffes. It's okay if you have a couple of 3-and-outs to start the game. Penn State's a very good defensive team. They're a great team. So you can go 3-and-out. You can have some issues as you kind of settle into the game, but you have to avoid the big mistakes. So the key for Dante Moore is don't force it. Don't force it. Don't try to do something that's not there. Just live to play another down and allow the guys around you to do their work. And then if the Ducks keep it close, this is how I see it playing out. They're going to keep the game close, and then once they get in the second half, all of a sudden the pressure is going to rise. And based on what we've seen for years now under James Franklin, when that pressure rises with the expectations that have been heaped on Penn State this year, many believe they might be the best team in the country. That's when they're going to start to fold. And James Franklin's got a long enough track record with Penn State to know that that's the way things happen. So love where the Ducks are at right now, and their offense looks dynamic with the play of their offensive line with continuity and the explosion plays that are back in the run game. And, oh, by the way, the young receivers that everyone was concerned about look pretty awesome through 2 weeks. All right, I bring in Brendan Slaughter from Beaver's Edge now, who is with me. And, Brendan, look, here's how I see it now. This is what I'm most curious about. I think it's the most important question to be answered between now and the end of the season. We know the Beavs have gotten off to a rough start. We know that with games at Texas Tech and at Oregon, they're probably going to be 0-4. But after those 2 games, there are opportunities on the schedule to turn the season around. So I think all that matters now for Coach Bray, we're going to find out everything we need to know about Coach Bray, I believe, over the next 6 to 8 weeks. How does he keep this team together through the adversity and not lose his guys? And if they continue to practice hard and play hard for him through the difficulty and they start to turn things around, then we'll know that Trent Bray's got the guys here. But that's what I'm going to pay attention to. If the 0-4 start happens, which is likely, how does he keep that group together, and do they still continue to respond to him through the difficulty? That's what I'm watching.
Yeah,
do you understand what I'm saying?
I think it's $1 million question, Chad, and maybe the one that's going to define Trent Bray's tenure as head coach at Oregon State because, not to get too dramatic or anything, but let's just say,
I like drama.
I mean, it's true. Okay, we all do. So it's like let's look at a best case, worst case scenario, right? If in a worst case scenario, like you said, Oregon State goes 0-4, I think getting absolutely blown out, like without having any sense of, hey, we did this positive against Oregon and Texas Tech the next 2 weeks. Like, you got to have something to hang your hat on. Maybe it's nailing special teams. Maybe it's looking better on defense for a stretch. I mean, just something tangible to build off of, Chad. And then, once you're at 0-4, you're kind of at that precipice point where it's like, either the senior leaders, the guys on this team, the Malik Murphys, the Nico Taylors, the Skylar Thomases, they're either going to make sure the team stays tight, like that ball of yarn where you can't get to the string, or you're going to start seeing some finger pointing. You're going to start seeing some frustrations boil over beyond just Trent Bray, dropping a bleep at halftime of the game. And I've seen that movie before. We talked about it a little bit on our podcast, Chad, working through, the 2017 season. Gary Anderson's last season came in with a ton of optimism, ton of expectation, and they end up going 1-11. We all know what happened that year. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but I've seen the bad movie before. I know what the signs are, and I'll be looking for it too, because frustration can lead to, the next level, the anger, resentment, all those things. So the Beavers really just need to get out of their own way, stop beating themselves up. And I really do believe in the second half, Chad. There are wins on the schedule. Do you have 6 easy ones right now? No, not by any stretch. But do you have a chance to pick up 4 or 5? I really think so.
Yeah, no question about it. There are wins to be had on the schedule, but Coach Bray's going to have his hands full just trying to keep the guys, on track and making sure that they stay focused throughout the course of the season and continue to work hard. And that's what I'm going to watch. I want to see if he's able to keep those guys together. I think it's going to be a very interesting storyline as things progress. But I feel for him, man. A lot of frustration.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of new guys on the roster. You're trying to work through that. A lot of young players. This is this rebuild. It's not an overnight type deal. It takes time.
No, and I think Beaver fans also have to remember that, look at Jonathan Smith, right? It took him until year 4, 2021, to get into the postseason, have that bowl year. I'm not saying that Trent Bray had as much or as little to work with as when Jonathan Smith first arrived at the end of Gary Anderson, but you go back and look with what Jonathan Smith took with him to Michigan State, with what went to Florida State. There wasn't a whole bunch of leftover talent last year. And I think, considering Oregon State went 5-7, that was a solid first year. Now when you, kind of fast forward to where we are now, and Oregon State starts 0-2, we expected them at worst to probably be 0-1. Potentially, as you said, staring down that 0-4. We're going to find out how good of a leader, like I said, those guys are, how good of a leader Trent Bray is. And heck, Chad, maybe at the end of the year, we're looking back saying, hey, this Oregon State team got to 6-6 and they're going to the R&L Carriers Bowl or whatever it is. But I think at this point, that has to be what Oregon State's hanging their hat on is try to salvage this season, try to get to 6 wins so you have something to build on going into the future.
All right, other games. So Oregon will kick off at 9 o'clock on Fox at Northwestern. Also at 9 on ESPN, number 12, Clemson's at Georgia Tech. That is a very good football game. Clemson a 3.5-point favorite, but Georgia Tech, very difficult. Great running game, physical team, good defense. They should give Clemson all they can handle. Number 13, Oklahoma at 9 on ESPN2 is at Temple. Wisconsin at Bama on ABC at 9 o'clock. And number 23, Michigan will take on Central Michigan. So multiple games at 9. Great way to kick off Saturday. At 12:30, number 6, Georgia. At number 15, Tennessee. One of the best games on the slate. Also at 12:30, the Beavers down in Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, number 21 in the country. The Raiders right now a 23.5-point favorite over the Beavs. Outside of that, South Florida, number 18 in the country, coming off their win over Florida at number 5, Miami. And the Hurricanes have looked terrific so far this year. Florida's at LSU. The Tigers right now number 3 ranked. That's at 4:30 on ABC. And one of the best games of the weekend, number 16, Texas A&M at 2-0 at number 8, Notre Dame, who's only played one game, the opening season loss at Miami. And now with some time off and a chance to regroup, they will host the Aggies. That should be a good game. The Irish, a 6.5-point favorite. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Chad doing live from Spirit Mountain Casino right here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Well, I certainly appreciate your time today. I can't believe it's another Thursday that's about in the books, and we get ready for another fabulous weekend of football, both college and NFL. And also a reminder, a week from Saturday, I'm going to be hosting the Civil War Party at Spirit Mountain Casino for the Oregon State game. And I would say that it's right at the top. The top two events all year that I host are Super Bowl and then the Civil War Party. It's going to be in the Event Center. They have great food, great memorabilia and prizes to give away. It's really a great way to take in the game. So if you're not going to go to Eugene, if you're not going to be in attendance, then the best thing to do is come hang out with me. Come on down to Spirit Mountain Casino, be a part of the party. You can hang out and watch the game. And usually it's about a 50-50 split between Oregon State and Oregon. So you get a lot of green and a lot of orange, which is going to be a heck of a time. And that's where I'm situated right now, just preparing for another football weekend. And I appreciate your time. Also, just another reminder, I'm going to be out at Gresham next week, a week from Friday, a week from tomorrow. I'm going to be hanging out for the Trailblazers Rip City Rally. And I'm going to do the show live from 3 to 6, and we'll have some Trailblazer guests. We're going to hang out. It's actually going to be a great time for, the family. So bring the kids out, and I'll be out there hanging out. I'll have more details on specifics, which park we're going to be at, and we'll get into that next week. But come out and join me on Friday. I know what it's like this time of year. It's easier to duck out of work early on a Friday than it is on another day. So make plans to come out and join us. I can't wait for the games this weekend. I do want to revisit the comments real quick. It looks like, I believe the Clippers are going to get hammered by the NBA in the near future for paying Kawhi Leonard under the table. It sure looks like that's what's going to happen. Even if they can't, find something to directly connect Steve Ballmer and this pseudo company, the fact is that Kawhi Leonard got paid by a company $28 million that Steve Ballmer invested $50 million into, and he did nothing. No social posts, no commercials, no nothing. He got paid $28 million to do nothing. That's probably not going to go well for the red-faced owner, Mr. Ballmer. And Mr. Ballmer is a very smart man. But these are the type of situations the NBA cringes for. They're going to have to set an example like they did with Minnesota back in the day and drop the hammer. But here's Adam Silver at his press conference, his reaction to the Pablo Torre news and the allegations against Steve Ballmer and the Clippers.
When the podcast came out, it was news to me. I'd frankly never heard of the company Aspiration before, and I'd never heard a whiff of anything around an endorsement deal with Kawhi or anything around engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. So it was all new to me. I heard it. I saw some of the follow-up information. We spoke internally. Rick Buchanan, our general counsel, is here, who oversees any investigations. Rick had a conversation with Steve Ballmer, and we quickly concluded this was something that rose to the level that necessitates an investigation. In fact, one that's done outside of our office.
Yeah, I definitely think it is going to bring in an investigation. I think Steve Ballmer's in a lot of trouble. And the funny thing is that that Kawhi Leonard, he couldn't care less about this entire situation that's going on. He got some money. He's well paid. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen to Kawhi? That the Clippers will have to get rid of him and he'll wind up with another team? I wonder if there's another team in the NBA that Kawhi could really help in the area of carbon footprint or trees or planting trees. Or maybe he could teach his teammates how to make a heck of a lot of money and do absolutely nothing in the process. But that's what I would do. If the Clippers are forced to give up Kawhi, then I would sign him and bring him in to spread all the proper information on carbon footprint and how to make a lot of money with doing nothing. It's just crazy. Absolutely wild. And Steve Ballmer's one of those guys where he annoys me, and yet I respect him all at the same time. Like when he's at games and he's cheering for his team and his face and his head get really beat red and he looks crazy like a psycho, that's when he annoys me. But when I listen to him talk about technology and business and some of the different aspects of Intuit Dome and the world of sports, I realize how much of a genius he is. He really is. But even geniuses make mistakes. Even geniuses don't always cover their tracks and can find themselves in some deep trouble. So we'll see how it shakes out. But, I'm sure Skeletor Mr. Silver, the Clippers should just be thankful that David Stern is no longer the commissioner, because he carried a heavy hand, and he would make sure that the punishment was fierce. Like, David Stern is like that father. Like, for instance, here's how it was in my household growing up. If me and my brother really upset my mom during the day and she said, wait until your dad gets home, we knew that we were dead. Because my dad was very simple in his philosophy. It's like, look, you can pretty much do whatever you want and have a good time, and I want you to grow up and be good young men. But if you disrespect your mom, if you upset mom or show any type of back talk, or you don't do what she says, any type of disrespect, if you lie to your mom, then it's you and me. And that's when I knew my dad meant business. Most of the time, my dad was very chill. But if we crossed mom the wrong way, he was there to drop the hammer. And I feel like David Stern was that dad, where when he started loosening up the belt, or when he took that little metal hook out of the notch on the belt, you knew you were going to get a whooping. But, Commissioner Silver, Skeletor, he's like the parent that makes the threats, like, oh, you just wait till we get home, and you know nothing's going to happen. But when my dad said, wait until we get home, that's when I would run into my room and put on like 6 or 7 extra pair of underoos to provide a little bit of cushion for my backside, which was going to get the hammer dropped on it. That's pretty much how that went down. Commissioner Silver, he's a little too friendly, a little too player-friendly. But we'll see what happens here. You cannot have teams circumventing the cap with some weird company called Aspiration that wants to reduce your carbon footprint by planting trees and paying Kawhi Leonard $28 million for doing absolutely nothing. Now, again, we all want that gig. You want the gig. I want the gig. Brendan wants the gig. Everyone wants that gig where you can make a whole lot of money and do nothing. And the funny thing is, it's like if Kawhi does a commercial, like one commercial, and maybe like a couple of social posts, then no one's going to have a problem. And we probably wouldn't be in this situation we're at now. Oh, well. The Clippers, look, they're the Clippers, all right? In my lifetime, they're arguably the worst professional sports franchise of all. And that includes the Browns and many others which are just god-awful. But the Clippers, even though they've shown some improvements, I can't believe they're playing in the Intuit Dome. Like, they've done a lot of good things. They're still the Clippers. They haven't won a championship. They can't get over in the postseason. And then they have situations like this. And they're still at the bottom of the totem pole in Los Angeles. No one cares about the Clippers in L.A. A lot of Laker fans there, the Dodger fans, Kings, the Rams. The question is, where do the Clippers fit in when it comes to the Chargers, who no one else cares about? The Chargers are like, they're like the redheaded stepchild in L.A. It's like, get out of here. You're San Diego. We don't want you. It's kind of one of those deals. Anywho, we'll see how it plays out. But, oh, by the way, let's listen to Jim Harbaugh again. Big fan of Jim Harbaugh. He obviously loves Justin Herbert more than you could possibly imagine. And Justin Herbert's coming off the best game of his career. And he showed a lot of toughness, and Jim Harbaugh took notice.
And a huge hit on Justin. The kind of hit that would have killed a lesser man. That's how big that hit was. Let's be honest about that. And then our guy, Justin Herbert, gets right back in the huddle, and it's 3rd and 14. It's Quentin Johnson, which ended up being a half yard short of the first down that allowed for that 4th down. I've been telling people Justin's great. Just unbelievable, credible, the kind of player that he is. That's especially hard, I think. Most quarterbacks, most human beings, you take that kind of big hit to come back the next play and just stand in there and look down the barrel of the gun and hit another one. It's pretty impressive.
That's amazing. Here's the real question. Who loves who more? Is the romance, does Jim Harbaugh love Justin Herbert more than Jim Nantz loves Tony Romo? That's really the question I want to know the answer to. Who loves who more? Does Jim Nantz have a greater burning passion for Romo than Harbaugh does for Herbert? That's the answer that I need to know. Because I swear that half the time I'm listening to a game with Romo and Nantz that they're on the verge of making out. I've never seen one guy love another guy in the box so much, but Nantz is in love with Romo. It's the only thing that makes sense, because how else can you explain a professional broadcaster like Nantz, who's like just pure gold, putting up with the craziness of Tony Romo and his hyperactivity? Well, gee, I don't know, Jim. Settle down, Tony. Hey, Tony, Jim Nantz is a legend. You are out of control. My dad needs to step in the box with Nantz and Romo to loosen up the belt to get him to settle down. Hey, Tony. I don't know, Jim. Tony drives you crazy. I don't need people telling me what's going to happen before it happens either. And when he first started, people were like, oh, this is great, man. Tony knows everything. And then you realize he's just crazy. But Jim Harbaugh loves Justin Herbert a lot. And he's made that very clear from day one when he took over as coach. And he makes sound effects, too. Anytime you add sound effects into a description of somebody, you know that that person really loves them. He's like, boom, bing, boom, like a pinball machine.
And a huge hit on Justin. The kind of hit that would have killed a lesser man.
A lesser man. The kind of hit that would have killed a lesser man. I don't know. It might be a tie. It may be an actual tie between who loves who more. Nantz, Romo, Harbaugh, and Herbert. Two matches made in heaven. But the bromance between Romo and Nantz is unbelievable. Because Nantz is too good to let somebody talk over him all the time, yet Romo talks over him all the time. It's like, Romo, close your mouth, buddy. I know that you know everything. But you get settled down. Too much energy. Too much stuff going on there. Like you just ate like kids after they eat a bunch of sugar and stuff, like Fruity Pebbles. That's what I feel like with Romo. It's like, settle down, bro. I know you know the game. I know you know what's coming. Just don't talk over Jim Nantz. Can you sit still for one moment? I'm going to put you in the corner, Romo. But Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, and I got to be honest with you, I love Justin Herbert too. Not as much as Harbaugh, but it was nice to see Herbert get off against the Chiefs for the first time and play his best game and get the W, most importantly. And then we've got the Chargers and Raiders. Go, Chargers, go! We got the Chargers and Raiders coming up this weekend. A very fierce rivalry. Hopefully no one will get their ear bitten off or stabbed during the game, because violence usually comes out with the Chargers and the Raiders. It's a very dangerous game. So we'll see how things shake out. But Justin Herbert poised for a big year, and we'll get a chance to see how the Raiders respond after that opening week win at New England. I thought they looked like, well, just like I thought they would look like, a team that has direction because they have a legitimate head coach in Pete Carroll now. It's very nice. Very nice. All right, a big thanks to all of you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I want you to have a good evening. Now, coming up on the show tomorrow, looking forward to this, Gary Myers, who's got his book out, Brady versus Belichick, the Dynasty Debate. He's going to join the show, and we'll have a chance to talk with him. Now, I am a big believer that Tom Brady is much more responsible for the dynasty than Bill Belichick, but we'll get the final word from Gary Myers. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter for engineering the program. Big thanks to Spirit Mountain Casino. I want you guys to have a great night, and we'll be back with the Rip City Drive tomorrow at 3, right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.